Some of you might know me already, but before I begin, I really want to explain to you why ancestral healing is such a powerful motivating force to help me to help others with ancestral healing. I had some really meaningful experiences that came up that sort of educate why I'm wanting to talk to you and spread the word about how we can really liberate not only ourselves, but our past and our future by healing ancestral wounds. So, some of you who know me know that I started out as a psychotherapist, and I was truly transformed through the path of learning about shamanism and learning about indigenous healing techniques and how they can really heal old cycles that we might be repeating in our life that we really want to gain control over so that we can feel liberated and free from the past to really pursue what it is that we're here to do and express ourselves freely and feel really abundant and full in life. I also had a really powerful life-changing experience a couple years ago during a life-altering event when I had a near-death experience that I'm going to share with you a little bit about. So it was between the learning about shamanism and these psychotherapeutic tools that I had that I integrated with these shamanic tools that I found that it's important for us to heal ancestral baggage on not just an energetic level, but also a mental level and a spiritual level. And when we use all of these deeper healing tools, we can create a space to live with more freedom, joy, and alignment with who we truly are. Now, while I was struggling with my own ancestral patterns, because I'm human, I'm like you, I struggle with things as well, I found that I was repeating ancestral patterns that were popping up, rearing their ugly head during my marriage, and it was sabotaging my success and my happiness. And so I realized that it was important for me to heal these ancestral patterns as they were showing up in my life. So I decided that it was time to go on an ancestral pilgrimage to heal not just these ancestral cycles for myself, but where I was seeing them play out in my lineage, in my father's lifetime, with my sister, with my extended family. This journey was not just about breaking me free from generational patterns, but from freeing myself and my ancestors from the weight of these unhealed wounds that were getting passed down from generation to generation. Now, it was during that pilgrimage that I experienced a life-altering event. While kayaking on a rushing river, I suddenly had an internal organ rupture that caused me to lose consciousness and flip over into the water. And if it wasn't for my partner, Sean, who's in the chat here, he's also pictured here, who saved my life, I would not be here to tell you the story about what happened. Now, while he was dealing with my body as I was unconscious and flipping over in the kayak, I had my own unique and profound near-death experience where I left my body. I went into the realm that I call the realm of lights and colors, where I met with my ancestors. I'm getting all teary-eyed. It was such a profound experience of coming face to face with the spirit of my ancestors, who I knowingly was going to this ancestral pilgrimage to meet with them by going to the colonial West Virginia area where the Powhatan people, which is my ancestral lineage, came from. And it was there that I was ushered into this divine experience to meet my ancestors face on. And they told me, when I was really freaked out in that state, I thought I had died. That's what happened. I saw the water in the kayak. I saw the blue of my kayak, and everything just went dark into tunnel vision. And the next thing I know, I met my ancestors. And the message that they had for me was so profound. They were so calm, so at peace, and so excited to see me. And it was in this experience, this moment, that they calmed me down and they said, "Don't worry, Kristen, you're not going to die today." Because they knew I came into this experience thinking I had just died. And they said that this was an activation and that it was important for me to be here and to receive this message from my ancestors. It was there that they did a cellular activation for me, and they gave me this very important message, is that my purpose is to help others who have ancestral lineages and patterns that they've inherited, to release those patterns, to heal their ancestors so that they can step into their life purpose and they can really truly become who they are meant to be without all of the baggage of the past. And so I believe that my soul orchestrated this experience, the divine timing of it all, so that I could meet my ancestors at this very pivotal moment in my life where I had moved. I had shifted away from my healing work with clients, and it was this wake-up call to go back, but to go even deeper, to help others experience the transformation that can come when we release these old ancestral patterns. So I am here today, and you don't have to die to receive that message, so that I can come here to be an activator for you, to support you on your journey of healing these ancestral wounds, the baggage that we bring in, so that you can feel free and step into who it is and what it is that you're here to do in this lifetime. Because I truly believe that we come with a soul's purpose, and so many things can get in the way, but we don't have to let those things hold us back from really stepping into the person that we were meant to be, to create the legacy that we were meant to create, to make our ancestors proud, right? I truly believe our ancestors prayed for us to be here, wished and wanted us to show up now so that we could be here to make a ripple and a positive change in the world at this exact pivotal moment of today. All right, so there's a lot to cover. I wanted to share with you sort of my why, because it's a big why as I tear up right here. So now I want to dive into our workshop materials, because it's important for us to understand the inherited patterns that we come in here to work with, and what we can do to release them so that we can really step into that next level of our power. All right, so today we're going to be looking at the 3 different signs that you might be carrying ancestral baggage, and of course, what to do about it. All right, so the first of our patterns is that you might find that you're repeating cycles and repeating patterns in your life. Have you ever noticed that you're repeating certain things that you've experienced either in childhood, or maybe patterns of attracting the same types of people that you have seen in your lifetime, or maybe you've experienced relationships that remind you of your parents or remind you of your parents' relationships, right? Maybe it's even in a work relationship. You're attracting certain people in business, your colleagues, your coworkers, or even people at the convenience store that you run into that are somehow reminding you of a certain pattern or certain cycle that you have in your life, right? I truly believe in the law of attraction, and like attracts like, and it's important for us to know that these patterns that we see repeating are important, because they're signs from our ancestors. They're signs from the universe that there is something that we need to work on or heal so that we can become liberated and graduate from those patterns, but also attract the types of situations and people that we want in our lives. So I want to give you some examples, because I'm an example of some of these things, right? I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that I never thought I would date someone that was like my parents. I think I went through my early 20s and my teenage years of dating people and being in long-term relationships with people who are so different from my family. But it wasn't until my marriage that I felt like I married into all of my family patterns. And it was absolutely a soul contract I was meant to have. Again, the universe brings us relationships and types of people and patterns into our life so that we can learn lessons. We're meant to experience them. And what stronger initiative than love, that we fall in love, that we're attracted to certain people because there's a pattern that we're attracted to, that we're meant to work out and work through in this lifetime to become the best version of ourselves. Well, I married into that. There were so many synchronicities there. Not only was my ex-husband so much like my father, it really triggered a lot of unhealed wounds in me that were very difficult to look at. I was faced with where I still had places in my psyche, in my soul, in those old past stories that I needed to heal around my father wound. And I had a double whammy there, because my ex-husband had the same birthday as my mother. And his mother also had almost the same birthday as my dad. And his mom was like a rolled in version of not just my father, but his mother was like my father and my sister combined into one type of energy that I was coming to a relationship with to learn what was unhealed, what was triggered, and what I needed to work on, right? So again, these patterns sometimes feel really uncomfortable, but we attract them into our life so that we can work through them, and we will continue to attract similar types of patterns until we heal the root cause of those wounds so that we can become liberated and move on to the next lesson that Spirit has for us to really become who we are meant to be and to really step into that energy. So I've had a couple clients who have experienced this as well. I had one client, he was always attracting these very bossy, controlling women into his life, and he had a partner that was just like his mother. And everyone that he dated, because I met some of his partners and did some healing work with them, they all sort of had the similar personality, and there was some pieces of his power that he really needed to reclaim from his childhood, from his mother who had great intentions, that wanted to take care of everything for him, sort of be that helicopter mom, but we needed to call back some parts of his power. And it was in one of our healing ceremonies when we did soul retrieval, where we called back his energy that had been sort of captured and held stunted by his mother, that it was, you can't make this up. As soon as he left the healing session, after we cut the cords, we called his power back. His mother was blowing up his phone, texting him and calling him, because she felt the subtle shift in the energy, like something had shifted, like he had gotten his power back, and that maybe he wouldn't need her anymore. She was messaging him about, do you need groceries? Do you need me to come over and visit? Do you need me to do your laundry? Things that, a 20-some-year-old adult who's living in a different state that his mother doesn't need anymore, but she was holding on to that and felt the subtle shift. So when we do this energy work, when we start to liberate ourselves from these patterns, other people, especially people in our lineage, start to feel the ripple effect of the energy that we reclaim and start to shift for ourselves to reclaim our power. And so it's like a tapestry, and all of the threads are connected. So if you're pulling one thread, all of the threads begin to pull. And in this case, we're trying to unravel the ones that aren't built into the tapestry in a healthy way, so that we can mend the tapestry, sort of reweave something that is more purposeful, that is more aligned with our higher self and for our highest good. All right, so I've had a couple of clients that have had these types of cycles. I had a client who was attracting endless partners that were emotionally unavailable, and it all stemmed back to an original wound with her father, who was very busy. She was the youngest of 5. They were all boys. She was the only girl, and her father had to work tirelessly to support his family, so he was not physically available most of the time because of his work ethic and how much he had to work to support their family. But then it was hard for him to relate to her because she was a girl, and back in the 50s, there was a disconnect from genders connecting with other genders, in the sense of he had more in common with the boys who would play sports and baseballs, and there were just more gender norms that she didn't quite align with at that time. So she felt that she was always pushed to the back burner, that everybody else in the household got more attention than she did. And she found that this was repeating in her relationships as an adult. Even after her father was no longer with her, then she was repeating this and sort of was chained to these patterns and ways of being that were not helping her, and not helping her get what she wanted or her needs met emotionally or physically in her relationships, right? She had these partners who were very busy. They worked many hours at their jobs. Some of them traveled around the world. And although she got to go on some really great vacations with her partners, she didn't have that consistent, loving, vulnerable relationship with her partners that she really wanted. And it was after we started to use the shamanic tools to unravel these layers, she was able to shift the types of partners that she drew into her life. And she then had a successful 5-year relationship with someone who broke the mold on all of those patterns, who was emotionally available, fully there to be a team player in the relationship, which really shifted and changed the dynamic of all of her relationships after that, because she was able to heal the root of the wound that allowed her to really step into this next level of love and attachment in her relationships. So I don't know if you've experienced anything like that. Let me know in the chat if you've had repeating patterns, whether you've noticed them throughout your childhood or even noticed that your parents have had these as well. Sometimes these are passed down to us as well. So I have another client, Vanessa, I just started working with, and she attracted a new type of partner that reminded her of her first love. And we were healing some wounds around her first partner who passed away. And she attracted someone that reminded her of him in the way that he looked and the way that he sounded, his ethnicity. But then she realized that there was this new dynamic that came in of him not being fully emotionally available when her first partner was. And she had a conversation with her aunt, who said, Vanessa, you have to break this cycle, and explained that her aunt, she had this experience throughout her lifetime of attracting a very similar type of man, and she was never able to break the pattern. And she begged my client, Vanessa, she said, I don't care what it takes. Please do the work. You're young, you're beautiful. You can still have this new type of partner. Please break the cycle because you're describing my entire childhood, all of my adult relationships with men. And it was an inherited pattern that she was tasked to heal for her ancestral lineage. And I have to say that through our work, we have done a lot of that shifting. And now she's attracting a completely different cycle and type of patterns of men and relationships. So it is possible. We can break these cycles. So I want to give you hope that you can shift the baggage that comes in. We can move through it. There's not always bad things that we inherit. Sometimes there's good. And we're going to be talking about that soon. But I want you to think about places in your life where you have noticed these patterns playing out. Because it is important for us to note that when these things are embedded in our energy field, whether that's consciously or unconsciously, it's because they are meant for us to see them, experience them, and heal them. And they show up energetically until we shift the pattern so that we don't have to carry it into the rest of our lifetime, and so that we can liberate our future selves and our lineage if we have kids and their grandkids, so that we can really shift these patterns for ourselves and for our ancestors. So if any of you have experienced any of that, please share in the chat. I know we're not an island here. Everybody has similar experiences. We are all mirrors of each other. So you're not alone if you've experienced them. I'm here with you as well. And so are a lot of the clients that come to me for healing. So I hope that this makes sense. Again, we unknowingly attract these patterns so that we can heal them. All right. So the next sign that we have ancestral patterns, Nico says the palpable feeling of jealousy whenever I see a couple displaying affection in public. That's interesting, right? And I wonder how far that goes back. Like if you've noticed that your family members have had that too. It's so funny, the ancestral patterns that we pick up on. I want to talk about that next, because sometimes we don't even need to know our parents very well or have a relationship with them at all. We still inherit some of these patterns. So let's talk about that. So in sign 2, it's that we've picked up on these unfounded fears and anxieties. So before I got into creative arts therapy, psychotherapy, and shamanism, I was really big into neuroscience and research, and I really wanted to become a researcher. And that's why I still nerd out. I look into science and what science says. It's not just about the energy that we inherit, but we have found that we can have fear and anxieties that are passed down, that create chemical changes in our DNA that are passed down from our ancestors. So let me share with you about one of my favorite studies that was done to explore this. So they did a study at Emory University in Georgia, where they demonstrated how rats exposed to trauma immediately after smelling the aroma of cherry blossoms produced up to 4 generations of offspring who experienced a fear response when presented with the cherry blossom aroma alone. These offspring rats, even though they had never experienced the trauma themselves and had never smelled cherry blossoms before, the moment that they smelled this fragrance, they would go into a shock and trauma response, even though they never had that trauma in their lifetime, nor had they smelled the cherry blossoms in their lifetime. So they would do whatever they could to avoid the stimulus, the smell of the cherry blossoms, because they innately knew that this meant that there was pain and there was trauma, and these anxieties got stored in their DNA and were passed down through multiple generations. And I have to say, I've seen this with a lot of clients that I've worked with, especially those who have been affected by the Holocaust, if their grandparents or parents had any trauma experiences related to the Great Depression. Sometimes these fears and anxieties can get passed down through our lineage line, even if we didn't experience the trauma ourselves. Now, I had a client that had this experience that I'm going to share about. I just want to do a trigger warning for it because it is a little bit intense. It's around sexual assault and abuse. So I had a client, Gina, and when we were working together doing shamanic healing interventions, she was finding that in a lot of our ceremonies, all of this trauma that was in her body was coming up, where she felt these reflections, this imprint of sexual trauma that she couldn't have any recollection of experiencing. She even said she had a great childhood. She didn't have any history of terrible things happening to her that she could remember. Now, we know that in trauma, when someone has gone through traumatic experiences, that part of their soul can leave their body. It's called soul loss. That's part of the work that we do together with soul retrieval, to call the parts of our power back after the experience that caused us to sort of shock that part of our energy out. That can happen where we can lose memories of events that have happened. But in this case, she couldn't recall a single bad thing that had happened during her childhood. And she felt like this might be something that she's processing for someone else in her family, but just didn't really know for sure. And it was through these interventions that she was able to really heal this for herself. And finally, after she did a series of work using shamanic healing techniques, she went back on holiday to see her mother and her sister. And it was there that she connected with her mom. Her energy has changed. Her mother's energy had changed quite a bit. She was always very tense. She was rigid. She was not very open. And she sat my client down along with her younger sister and told them the story of the real reason that they fled their home country when they were children. And it was because her mother was going through sexual assault experiences and felt afraid for her own safety, afraid for her children. So she packed their bags and in the night fled to another country and started anew, and never told her daughters the true story of why they left until that moment that this ancestral healing work was already in motion. And finally, she was able to talk about this abuse that happened and what had happened in her experience that caused her to relocate her family, but in a sense that she was not overburdened by it, almost like she was free from that experience. And my client said her mom's energy was so different. It was like she was finally free to be herself and to open up about her experience. So when we heal these ancestral generational inheritances, we not only heal ourselves, it's the idea of the 7 generations theory, where Native Americans talked about how if we heal ourselves, if we do that internal work, we not only heal our own lineage and our lifetime and our future, but we heal 7 generations behind us and 7 generations ahead of us. And so it is important work for us to do this. Now, there's a scientist, Professor Marcus Pembry. He's a pediatric geneticist at the University College of London, who talked about the biological transmission and how it addresses constitutional fearfulness that is highly relevant to phobias, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, plus the controversial subject of transmission of the memory of ancestral experience down the generations. So it is true, we can inherit memories, even if we didn't experience them, even if they're just on a DNA, energetic, physical level, that I believe we are meant to heal. And I look at this time that we have that's so unique for all of us, where our ancestors, they didn't have access to the same tools that we do. The therapy was not supported, right? You were looked at sideways if you went to a shrink. And these days, it has lost that negative stigma. We're finally in a time period where it's embraced, right? It's a good thing if you go to therapy. People in the dating world love someone who's self-aware and has done work on themselves. So it no longer has this stigma. We're finally at this moment where we can heal not only ourselves, but look at the generations that have come before us that did not have the access to the tools, nor the tools or the support to use the tools that we have today. So I want you to share in the chat if this resonates with you, if you feel like you've inherited some anxiety, some anger, maybe some reactions or responses that come out of nowhere. Nico, I see that you've raised your hands. I'd love for you to share in the chat. We have a lot more to cover, and I just want to make sure we connect with that. So Yana says, epigenetics is a study of passed down trauma. I believe that's what it's called too. Yes, exactly. Awesome. Yeah. So as you know, this is all part of that experience of inherited trauma. All right. So next I want to talk about the third sign. It's becoming the best and the worst of your parents. I don't know if you've seen that commercial for insurance, and it talks about, are you becoming just like your parents, and that counselor that's talking about different ways that we can sort of troubleshoot not becoming like our parents. And that's a funny way to say that if we don't heal those cycles, we can become those cycles knowingly or unknowingly. And that's not always a bad thing, right? We can inherit a really good work ethic. We can inherit gifts like a beautiful voice or artistic talents from an ancestor, from a mother, from a grandmother, from a grandfather. But sometimes we inherit the ugly stuff too, even if we aren't aware of that. Katie says, I have an intense fear of water, even through nothing traumatic has happened to me in this life. Katie, I have something similar. We could talk one time. I've had to work through some of that as well. Nico says, my relationship to spending money on things, I feel this desperate urge to buy something out of scarcity, and it extends across the need to message love interests as well. This idea that if I don't message them quickly or say the right thing, then they'll go away. Right? Sometimes we have these anxieties that we're running out of time, that there's a pressure that isn't even ours, that we've somehow inherited and can't connect mindfully or mentally to where that milestone was that changed us or allowed us to become or behave or act this way. Sometimes it's because it's in our DNA. We're just doing that thing, right? Just think of the instincts of animals, the instincts of prey, of cats, of dogs, of animals in the wild, right? You can remove feral cats from that environment and you can domesticate them, but they're still going to have some of those tendencies to be a feral cat, to attack birds, to chirp like birds, to try to sneak up on them. So that's all inherited, and we inherit those things too, whether we know it or not. Right? So here's an example. I hate to admit it. Again, more things I inherited from my dad besides his good looks. I look just like my dad, by the way. I inherited his micromanaging of the kitchen. So my dad used to do this thing where if he was ready to cook, he would push everyone out of the room, even though we had a really big kitchen, and would take over. And he was very critical, very demeaning, and he said a lot of mean things about you do this way or do it that way. And I realized that in my first college relationship where I was cooking in the dorm with my partner, that I had inherited that bossy nature of being in the kitchen. And it took a lot of healing, a lot of self-awareness to unravel those patterns. I have to say I'm free. I'm now a nice teammate in the kitchen, but I realized that, wow, I'm doing exactly what my dad did to me. And that made me feel terrible when I was around my dad, and now I'm making my partners feel terrible. Why is it that I'm inheriting this way of being? My mother was never like that, but for some reason I was acting like my controlling father in the kitchen. And, I also inherited good things from him. He's an entrepreneur. We're on a very similar life trajectory and life path as far as starting our own businesses, wanting to help others, even in different areas. I take after my father in so many ways that my uncle sits me down and says, your dad would be really proud of you if he really knew all the accomplishments that you've had because you're a lot like him. So I want to talk about sometimes we inherit things from ancestors even though we don't know them or we don't have a personal relationship with those ancestors. So my ex-husband was raised by a single mother and didn't have a lot of connection with his father until he was an adult. He didn't meet him until the time in which we were married, and he met his dad because there was a death in the family. He met him at the funeral. But his mother always used to say, you're just like your dad. This is how, you look like your dad, you act like your dad, especially when he would get upset about something, he would he would shut down like his dad. He had a very similar temperament. And when he reacted and got angry, he was a lot like his dad. And it was really interesting because when he finally met his father, he realized that even though he wasn't raised by his dad, he had so many physical and emotional and behavioral attributes that made him a striking image of his father in so many ways, even though he was raised in a different household. Now, this can happen to so many of us. I was researching the Colorado Adoption Project, where there was a longitudinal study in Psychology Today who published it, where there were 245 adoptees who were tested alongside their birth mothers and adoptive parents. And initially, adoptees' cognitive abilities correlated more with their adopted parents, but when they turned 16, their abilities aligned more closely with their biological mothers. So the shift implies that while the environment plays a role in early development, genetic factors become more prominent over time. So even if we don't want to end up like our parents, then we somehow look back and realize that we still did become a lot like our parents. It makes a lot of sense because it's so ingrained in our DNA, these behaviors of how to act that are inherited, just like animals have instincts that they've inherited as a way and technique of survival. So there's other research projects that have looked at personality traits and how even someone who's raised by someone who's adopted will oftentimes have the same levels of extroversion or agreeableness more similar to their biological parents than their adopted parents, even if they didn't meet their parents when they were children and when they were forming these styles of relation. So now that we've touched on a couple different ancestral patterns, I want to know which ones resonate most with you. Is it the repeating patterns, inheriting anxieties and fears, or is it the dreaded becoming just like your parents even though you don't want to? All right, so Yana agrees with Nico about the money wounds are deep. Coming from SSU and having family that died of starvation during the blockades, all of this has definitely been passed on. Yes. And so, sometimes there's beautiful legacies and sometimes there's ones that stop us from really stepping into our power and being in a good place in life. Really, when we're pulled into that fear vibration, we're not able to do the thing we're here to do. Instead, we're afraid of what that unknown looks like. It's scary to break a cycle that we've never experienced before. It's scary whether it was an ancestral and inherited cycle to do something new just because it's new to our experience. But when we have that energy that's behind us, that can become really difficult. And we'll be giving you an example of that in just a little bit. All right. James says, I've had some similar relationships with cooking and other people. I let Star cook some eggs this morning and let myself consciously accept care. It was nice. Perfect. Right. So it creates, it causes us to need to really be mentally aware of the patterns that we are playing out so that we can stop them. Now, I want us to think about a couple things. We don't have a lot of time. We really want to have time to do our journey today. So we're just going to be touching on these, and I want you to sort of think about these prompts for yourself, just mentally. So what cycles are you noticing that you are repeating in your family line? As Helen says, ran from being like my mom and now she's caught up with me, right? So what cycles, Helen, are you experiencing that are like your mother's? What experiences are in general, are you noticing in your lineage that come to haunt you? Whether it's in your dating life, your working life. Just think about that. And what emotions or beliefs do you carry that you don't feel are entirely your own? Now this one's the most fun. If your ancestors could speak to you right now, what do you imagine they'd say? And this is the spoiler alert because I have my drum, because we're going to be connecting with our ancestors to see exactly what they would say. So I just want to transition for a moment to do a meditation where we connect in with our ancestors. So thinking about all those things in our head, all of those points that we've just stirred up in the pot, I want us to take a deep breath together and let it out. Even with it, if it comes with a noise, just let that go. And if you have a chair or a place where you can lie down, I want you just to lean into the experience, because we're going to be going into a shamanic guided journey with the beat of the drum to connect in with our ancestors for a message. If our ancestors speak to us right now, what would they say? We're going to find out. All right, so as you just settle in with your breath into that comfortable spot, we're going to start our journey. And I just want you to follow the sounds of my voice and allow your subconscious to speak to you. So closing your eyes and settling in, listening to the sound and the beat of the drum. I want you to imagine walking in nature, seeing a beautiful tree. And as you walk up to that tree, you notice there's an opening in the bottom of the tree by the roots that is just big enough for you to fit into. Fitting into this family tree, As you go into that opening, I want you to imagine that it leads you through a tunnel, down, down, down into the opening, into the earth. Moving all the way through those different layers of sediment. Down, down, down until you notice the opening on the other side that's filled with light. I want you to go into that opening on the other side, asking for your ancestors to come and meet you there with an important message. Seeing that ancestor up close. Hearing the words that they have to share. What is the message that they have for you right now? What do you need to know? Asking if there's any other messages that you need to receive. Is there anything else that you need to know right now from your ancestors? A message of guidance and wisdom. Be open to their message now. guides for their wisdom and the messages that they've brought to you. Giving them a hug and really soaking in those messages of warmth and love and support. And as you're ready, start to come back from your journey, bidding farewell, going back into that tunnel, all the way up through the roots, climbing them up, all the way up into the base of that tree, coming back into the forest, and then back into your body now. Taking a deep breath in and out. And slowly coming back from that journey, that meditation, to your guides. If there's anything that feels profound that you want to share with our group, you can share it in the chat. I know on my end I usually connect in with certain ancestors, the ones from my near-death experience, but I connected with my grandfather today. So that was really nice, and a couple of feminine ancestors I hadn't met before. So I'm curious who you met with. Feel free to share if you so feel called. And I'll just wait a moment if there's anyone that wants to share anything that came up. Got my eye on the chat. James says, I found my way to a lot of this stuff through other means, and I mostly got to keep it up. Nico says, I connected with my great-great-grandfather, who we just found out about, Manuel Augusto Nomes. Ooh, that's exciting. Isn't it funny how we connect in with ancestors? I had this ancestral piece of jewelry that I inherited from my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, who's actually 7 generations away from Pocahontas, and I'm 14 generations from her. She's actually on my ancestor altar right there. I inherited her piece of jewelry and then felt really connected to her and started to connect with her in a lot of different ways. So it's funny how we inherit or we find out about our ancestors and then they come in a lot of strong synchronistic ways. Helen says, I saw the snake phobia, an ancestor who had to walk across a viper's nest. Wow, that's really profound. That's very interesting. So cool that you could get to the root of that in our meditation today. And I have another gift for you at the end of today to go into a deeper meditation than the one that we had time for today that helps you connect with your ancestors. So I'll share about that more at the end. James says there's so much anger in men and so much fear in the women, and it feels like reconciling those things in myself is important. Started weeping, wasn't expecting that. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it, James. I'm so glad that's coming up to be seen. Katie says I met a gorgeous ancestor who looked like a Norse goddess. Ooh. And she said, fight against misogyny and the patriarchy, and that I have the ability to communicate with animals like my ancestors did. So many juicy messages. I love this. So as we move on through our journey today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the tug of war that we have going on energetically. Now, I see us as a tug of war where we're on one side, we're excited to move into the journey of our dreams, right? Maybe it's to start that business. Maybe it's to reinvent ourselves in some way or start a new hobby or transform our life or take a step towards the direction of our dreams. And here we are on one side, pulling that rope of intention, saying, I want to run off and do this cool thing. And then on the other side, there's a tension where there's ancestors. Maybe it's few, maybe it's 100 different ancestors that are pulling your attention away from moving forward to your dreams, and they're pulling you towards attention of something that needs to be resolved. Again, we only learn and experience and revisit these cycles because there's a gem of wisdom for us once we heal it. The energy that can then be activated and transmuted so that we have more power to pull towards our dreams. Right? So can you imagine having maybe a dozen ancestors on the other side there saying, wait, we have to look at this relationship pattern. We need to look at the scarcity fears, or we need to look at this phobia, or this anger that's seeded from something in the past, or this cycle. If we have all of these ancestors pulling on one side, it's really hard to take too many steps forward because we're always being pulled to the past. Now, can you imagine the power of liberating those parts of our past, those ancestors from those traumas, from those cycles? Could you imagine how once they have healed and we have healed that with them, they could then come over to our side and be part of our tug of war team to help us with this momentum, the support, and the cheerleading to have that energy and the ambition to move forward. Can you imagine if we start to really release the cycles of the old and win over those ancestors and help heal their cycles so that we don't have to relive them? How many more energies of power, of support from our ancestors we can have pulling towards the direction of our dreams so that we can really become the legacy and create the legacy that we are meant to create. If we have that force pulling against us, we can only go so far. But if we heal the root of all of what they're pulling our attention to resolve, then we get all of these ancestors to support us on our side. So if you're ready to unlock those inherited patterns, receive ancestral wisdom, and begin your journey to healing, then this is where we're at. I'm excited to share with you because really you could take what we've learned today. I have a meditation as a gift for you that I'm going to share the link to at the end. If you want to take this and move forward on your own, you have the tools to do it. And now you have a little bit more in your arsenal of ways that you can work on healing and resolving these old patterns. But for those of you who really want to take action to go deeper into their experience and really heal those unconscious patterns that are holding you back so that you can step into your living legacy, then I have a special invitation for you if you're ready for your soul's legacy. So if you are ready for the next layer of healing and you want to break free from the ancestral and energetic patterns that have kept you from fully stepping into your power, then my upcoming retreat, What's Your Legacy, is just for you. Now, What's Your Legacy is a 7-day ancestral healing retreat in the heart of Costa Rica's cloud forest, designed to help you release the unconscious patterns holding you back so that you can step into your purpose, power, and your soul's legacy. We'll be gathering here at this site at Verdesana, which is a 5-star regenerative luxury eco-village on 100 acres of sacred land on January 25th through the 31st of 2026 to do healing ceremonies, shamanic journeying, family constellations, somatic release, and rituals designed to awaken your soul's purpose and connect you with your lineage and heal your unconscious patterns to activate the living legacy that you were born to create. Your job is easy. All you have to do is arrive at the airport and everything else is included. Your gourmet meals, luxury lodging, excursions to waterfalls, healing ceremonies at volcanoes, hot spring-fed pools, and sacred teachings for transformation. Now, this is more than just time away on a vacation. It is that as well, don't get me wrong, but it's a powerful reset for your energy. You'll leave from this retreat feeling refreshed, revitalized, and free from the weight of the past, clear and confident about your next steps forward, connected to your purpose and the living legacy that your soul came here to create, and empowered by the wisdom of your ancestors and the strength of community around you. This retreat is for you if you feel the call to create a positive ripple effect in the world and you know it's time to stop carrying old patterns and activate your purpose, even if you're not clear about what that is yet. If this is for you and you feel the call, then I invite you to say yes to your healing and yes to your ancestors and yes to your legacy. Now, you won't be walking this path alone. You'll leave with a deeper sense of who you are, where you're going, and the unshakable knowing that you're surrounded by your lineage, by your soul, and the powerful circle of our community around you. Now, there are 4 different luxury style cabins to choose from, as I have some pictured here. It's a beautiful, beautiful space, ecovillage, built on legacy. These 5-star cabins, and it all depends on which one you choose. The investment starts at $5,997 with everything included once you get to the airport. Travel to all of the excursions, everything paid for. The spa treatments there are extra, but we've got a built-in spa day with the hot pools and cold plunges on site. Chance to bathe in waterfalls and do ceremonies at the volcanoes. So if you feel the soul pull to be there, I'm offering an early bird special of $500 off your booking if you sign up now or book a clarity call with me after this workshop to go into more details to see if this is right for you. I can walk you through the package, walk you through the different room styles, and go a little bit deeper to share with you more about our excursion. Now, this special offer is only available for the end of the month when prices are going to be jumping $500 for each cabin. So I wanted to sweeten the deal for you, and I'm also including 2 one-on-one bonus sessions to help you get started on your healing journey for the first 7 people who sign up and make their deposit for our retreat time together. Now, this retreat is for you if you feel caught and stuck in the patterns you didn't consciously choose. You're curious about ancestral healing, but you don't know where to begin. You're ready to stop repeating the past and start creating a powerful future, and you're called to do deep soul work, lead with purpose, and leave a legacy that feels aligned with your soul. So are you ready to become the dream of your ancestors and activate your living legacy? If you are, I have openings on my calendar, and I'd love for you to book a call with me so that we can chat a little bit more. And I also want to share with you the gift of the ancestral meditation that we did today. I have one that's a little bit longer so you can go a little bit deeper. I just wanted to make sure that we had time for all of our workshop points today. So that's going to be on our pages here that I'm going to share in the chat box. So if you're curious, I'd love to chat with you. I have a couple slots on my calendar today and for the next couple of weeks as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions here, but I want to honor our time as it starts to come to a close. So I'm going to share with us in the chat. There's the retreat link. And Sean, can you also share the link to chat with me to go a little bit deeper one-on-one? Now, I'd love to hear if there's anyone else that had anything that they want to share from their breakthroughs from this workshop. We have a few more minutes for questions or for anyone that wants to share any breakthroughs that happened. Yep, there's the link. And so if you're curious about the meditation that we did today and you want to go deeper, on the What's Your Legacy retreat page at the very bottom before the FAQs, I've embedded a picture of our workshop today with an extended version for you to go a little bit deeper to connect with your ancestors, because I want to give you all of the tools to set you up for success. But I also wanted to create that invitation, since we can't do all of that deeper work just on an hour-long call. And it's so much more powerful when we gather together in community to do these rituals, to do these ceremonies, to go even deeper.